Welcome in, Loons fans, to another edition of the Matchday Preview. Jonathan Harrison here, back this week. Thank you to co-host Manny Lagos for filling in. Excellent job last week, filling in the hosting role. Loved listening to that podcast last week, Manny. Insightful, fun to listen to the catch up with Cameron Knowles and then the preview of the Leagues Cup matches. So how are we doing this week? Long time no see.
Well. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Obviously, Cameron was a fun interview given his history, and he's now been with the club a long time, has a great history in Portland. I didn't mention on the podcast, but New Zealanders have done well in the Twin Cities market. My dad used to coach a lot of players that were from New Zealand that played in the Thunder back in the day, so. Certainly there's something there, a connection with how well Cameron and Michael Boxall have assimilated to our northern culture here in Minnesota.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Cameron Knowles has fit in excellently in the coaching staff, and then Michael Boxall's just been kind of the rock on that defense for feels like forever now at this point. And not looking forward to the times when he's not here, but enjoying the time we still do have with him. We'll hopefully see him back here soon after the Olympics are wrapped up. Let's jump into that a little bit. I know we've got the big talker of Dane St. Clair's incredible night. We'll get to that. Hold on, Loons fans. We'll get to that in a little bit. But let's just do a general recap of the last week. Plenty to talk about, Olympics to talk about, and let's jump into what the U.S. did at the Olympics. Men's national team moving on. They'll face Morocco in the quarterfinals. U.S. women's national team, they move on 3 wins. They'll face Japan in the next round or in the knockout rounds. Exciting times for U.S. soccer at the Olympics.
Yeah, I mean, I think we needed it, on both the men and women's side. I'll start with the women's side. It's fun to watch a new coach and a new style, a new identity, and the execution of it, giving such good kind of energy to the women's national team after, not doing as well in the last major tournament that they were in. So it's a young team. They picked new players. They picked kind of a stake in the ground that we're going to evolve from kind of a traditional older player national team. And they've just been outstanding. The tempo they play at, the energy they attack with. It's really been 90 minutes of relentless soccer, which has been really fun to watch. And Emma Hayes has done a great job. I mean, just really, again, now the real stuff starts in terms of battling in these knockout games, but just seeing what the team needs to become to compete now on the global stage and continue to be the best women's team in the world. You can't be but not excited about it. It was a great group stage for them.
Yeah, absolutely. It was fun to watch them kind of, I don't want to say regain their confidence because they never really lose that confidence because we know that they're one of the best, if not the best teams in the world year in and year out. But it feels like it was kind of a coming out party under this new regime at the Olympics. And it's fun to see that swagger back and see them kind of take it to these teams and a couple dominant performances in those games. What do we think of how the U.S. men's national team, the under-23s, performed? I know they had the disappointing 3-0 loss to France in the opening game, but they came back with the 4-1 win over New Zealand and then a 3-0 win over Guinea to move on to the knockout stages.
Yeah, I just as a fan, I feel like we needed this type of group stage performance by them, and they delivered. The 3-0 France was not a 3-0 game. That was a 1-0, 1-1 game. I thought the chances were fairly even. I thought we hung in there and played very well, and then gave up 2 late goals to make it look like the scoreline flattered France. But it was a very even game. It gives me exciting hope for the knockout stage, especially this game coming up against Morocco tomorrow. I thought we responded great after that loss, and then 2 just really dominant games, and a mixture of some new young faces, some kind of veteran faces in there. And played really good soccer, really attacking, good defense, good shape, good structure. I'm really looking forward to see what they can do against Morocco because I'm very bullish that this group has found something that, we maybe haven't had with our national teams and the international stage for the men in a long time. So a great group stage. I know they're maybe lighter opponents in terms of New Zealand and Guinea, but, taking on New Zealand, who was in their own right feeling really bullish after getting their first win, and our own Michael Boxall having to go up against our Americans was just a fun dynamic as well. And again, a really, really good group stage, I thought, for the US.
So what are the expectations for the US for both men and women coming out of the group stages going to the knockout rounds? I feel like the women the expectation is to win it. I don't know so much about the men though.
Yeah, I think the women are the Brazil of men's soccer.
Yeah.
They are the best in the world. They have built a culture. I know a lot of good people in that organization. I know a lot of good people and it's not easy to have and continue that culture, even for
Right.
Brazil to deal with that stress and to deal with the reality that you have to step on the field, play well, are expected to win, and then win and do both. It's not easy, and especially as the world really now, it's so exciting to see women's soccer and how it's embraced now in so many countries, and it's soccer is such a great sport, and you have these cultures now that are really catching up fast to the U.S. in terms of them loving soccer and supporting the women's game. I don't think anything less for them than expectation of now just building on their solid group game to win a gold. I mean, that's really it. I mean, and again, they have done that because they over the years have built up a culture that has an expectation every time they step on the field. And it's not easy, and you can feel it and see it, and it's there. And it's something that the men uh, we need to strive for on the men's side. So for me, for the women, it's just now getting ready to step on the field as favorites, probably in every game for the rest of the tournament, and taking care of business and winning the gold. Easier said than done, but that's my expectation. I think it's awesome. That's a credit to the national team program in the past. And again, that's a credit to Evan and this group showing the world how we're evolving and still the best in the world. On the men's side, I just think it's getting a win tomorrow against Morocco and see where it goes. Ultimately, the games will get tougher and tougher, but this is a winnable game. This is a game that I think we can compete, that I think we can win. I think we match up well against them on the field. So it's exciting to see if we can get to the semifinals for that group.
Yeah, it'll be exciting to watch both those teams in knockout round play, see what the U.S. women's national team can do on their quest to return to the title, and then what the men can do for the first time at the Olympics in a very long time. It'll be exciting to see what they can do. Let's jump into some Leagues Cup action. We'll get to Minnesota's matches in a second here, but what's been your overall thought on how the tournament has played out over these first 1.5 rounds as the second round is still going on? Second round of games is still going on right now.
Yeah, I think it's been an outstanding start for the MLS teams.
Yeah.
Obviously the record will show that, but it's not just the record. I think I think it's an interesting situation where I think the League MX teams are at the beginning of their season. I felt like we've looked fitter than them overall, a little bit more organized and structured than those teams because they're really at the beginning of their season. I think it showed. And so the one of the strengths I've always said about MLS versus all of the leagues in the world is the parity of depth of our league, to me, is better than no other league in the world. And I think it's still something that we should put our chest out about that. We really are a 30 deep team in league in the world where most leagues are 4 to 6 most.
Right.
And then the level drops or the disparity drops. And there's some really good pride we should take in terms of how the teams and the roster build and the work over the last 10 years to make MLS relevant on a global stage and on a national stage here, that now you can kind of see, where even Mexico, which is a great league and the top end is just stacked, they're struggling to deal with our depth of parity within our league.
Yeah, I mean, you see some of these results from the first couple games. I mean, you get a 1-1 draw between San Jose and Chivas, and the San Jose side that we saw a couple weeks ago that has struggled mightily this season, and they pull out a 1-1 draw, win on penalties, I believe. You get Austin kind of running roughshod over Monterrey last night, or on Tuesday night. That was another impressive result. There's just been a lot of really good results from MLS teams over Liga MX teams, and that's, I think, been the standout for me over these first 2 years of the tournament is that parity. And I know that there's going to be a lot of talk of Mexican teams having to come up to the U.S. and playing on the road a lot. And the fact that, as you said, they're at the beginning of their season. So it's kind of the reverse of the CONCACAF Champions League where MLS teams are at the beginning of their seasons and having to fight against that. And I know there's going to be those criticisms, but I still just like seeing MLS teams up and down the standings go toe to toe with some of these bigger name Mexican clubs. And come out with these good results. I think that's really good for the long-term prosperity of this tournament.
Yeah, I love that you brought up Chivas too, Jonathan. I mean, obviously, I don't know if our fan base knows it's such a unique club, and I don't
Yeah.
even know if they're necessarily top tier anymore. But they obviously the identity of their club is they can only sign Mexican players or Mexican American players, and they had 50,000 plus out in San Jose. Great game. San Jose got an
Yeah.
early goal in battle, could have gone up 2-0 a couple times, and then just hung in there, and then the one in a PK. I think Chivas scored based on the last kick to tie it up 1-1. Loved the game, loved the fight. I love the history of Chivas, and I loved kind of San Jose going toe to toe with that kind of big history. So the Austin Monterey was an outstanding result. I think they just caught a Monterey team that looked flat on the night and really, um, you know, from beginning to the end of the game, played really well. So
Yeah.
that is one of the more signature wins when you're playing against one of the top 3 or 4 teams in Liga MX, and you get that kind of result. It does raise some eyebrows, but overall, the eyebrows are raised because it was a great start to Leagues Cup. And you're right. There's no doubt us hosting is an advantage. There's no doubt beginning of the season. But to your point, we've had to suffer years of CONCACAF Champions League at the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I have the same kind of sympathy. And the second thing is the league wants to build their brand in the U.S., which is great. We want to grow soccer no matter what. Our goal should be to get more soccer fans and eventually more soccer fans in MNUFC representing us and MLS. But ultimately, these League of X teams want to play these games. They want to be up here. They want to build their brands in the U.S. So I don't think it's quite one-sided to say, oh, we're doing this just to kind of stack the tournament. You do have League of X wanting to be up here playing games in the U.S.
Right. I mean, according to TV ratings, statistically, Liga MX is one of the most watched leagues, if not the most watched league in the US. So those teams benefit from playing up here, getting their fans to see them, the fans that live up in the States being able to see their teams in person. And then hopefully that translates to some of them becoming fans of MLS teams. And it's good to see that these teams regularly competing against each other now. Any other games that I didn't mention that have kind of shocked you so far over the first couple, or that you've taken note of over the first couple days of Leagues Cup?
No, I think you kind of hit on them. I think obviously to bring up that Columbus and America, a couple of America haven't played yet, and they've got the first round bye to the 32. And I really like that format where, teams that do well, they can kind of breathe a little bit and kind of watch the competition. I think once we get out of this knockout stage, it'll be interesting to see, how it filters up between the top MLS teams and the top League MX teams and where this tournament goes. But right now, we certainly look like we're in good shape.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's jump into these games that Minnesota played. We'll start off with the Seattle one. Obviously, a disappointing result out in Seattle. 2-0 loss, thanks to goals from Jordan Morris and Paul Rothrock. This is an interesting one. I don't have a whole lot of notes for this one because a peek behind the curtain, I was still on vacation at the time. So Manny, you might have to carry us through this part of the conversation. But from what I saw while watching it in between sitting at the pool, I thought it was relatively back and forth until the later parts of the matches, and then Seattle kind of just took over and really put Minnesota to the sword, especially after scoring that goal from Jordan Morris. I don't know, that's kind of what I saw, but maybe you have different notes.
Yeah, well, I think the elephant in the room is the red card.
Yeah, for sure.
Ultimately, there's two big things there. First, we still haven't figured out Seattle, so we want to ignore it, but it's there. It's there.
Yep.
We haven't played well, or we haven't hung on the leads, or we haven't found a way to get a point and then go to the PK in this situation. So ultimately, it's real. Ultimately, we're not quite as sharp as we are. Sometimes we go other places in the road for some reason. And this game kind of played out like the history of our games in Seattle did, where we looked pretty good early. I think when I was there live, I would say we missed some opportunities to really hurt them when they kind of lost the ball in bad spots. I don't think we graded like the chances, the output we would have had. And I think at halftime, we made some changes and we kind of switched things up. And I think we even got stronger for about, the 15 to 20 minutes. And then the red card changed the game where we would have to defend for long periods. And we just couldn't quite do it. Ultimately, Seattle gained some momentum and strength, and we couldn't quite keep our shape and structure for the being down a man for that long. So it was a tough result ultimately again, because again, it kind of felt like Groundhog Day in Seattle.
Yeah.
And finding a way to lose. And, that's hard to take, but hopefully when in the macro sense, we look at these and we learn from them and say, hey, we've got to get better and we've got to grow. And, our goal is to kind of be a consistent team wherever we go play. And there were some nice moments, though. Luik, I thought, really came into the game and had a really good first half and was lively and, won some really good fouls and had some good breakouts where we had some chances to score in the counterattack. And I really thought, to your point, the game didn't have much in it, although I think Seattle had a little bit of the advantage until the red card. And then it did kind of shift us really having to fight and scrape to kind of hold them and see if we could get a result by going to a shootout. Although we did have one great counterattack with Tani late. That would have been amazing. He tried to flick it over the goalie.
Mm-hmm.
It was a great counterattack where he almost caught Seattle flat-footed. So, it was a tough night. Like I said, it was a tough night just because we've done this before in Seattle.
Yeah, for sure. I'm also, I think I'm going to overlap some of these conversations between the Seattle and the Necaxa game because it feels like there's a lot of overlapping thoughts from them. And you said it, the red card that in both of those games, and now it's 5 red cards and 7 Leagues Cup matches. I don't know if that's just a weird statistical anomaly that it just keeps happening, or there's something different about a tournament that's set up like this that kind of brings out a different energy from the team. But it feels like it's a consistent theme between all these games over the last 2 years in Leagues Cup that obviously the Loons just keep getting red cards and have to battle against it. And I don't know what that is. It's a very interesting thought or interesting scenario that keeps playing out.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. I think there's a little bit of, these Leagues Cup games are spicier. You're playing not against MLS opponents, you're playing against a different country, and they have their own stresses and expectations. And so there is a physicality and mental and emotional kind of reality that, from a maturity standpoint, they're separate, but they are connected. That we're probably creating our own bad luck by not being quite as disciplined as we need to be in these games, and make sure that we don't get caught up in the shenanigans sometimes of the stresses of these games. So ultimately, I think they're all separate, but I think there's a connection now that we've got to get better, and we cannot put ourselves behind the 8 ball. We have played pretty darn well in some of these games down a man. So that's been really fun to watch. And, moving on from the Seattle game to the performance by the team and the gutsy fight we had, and then certainly one of the best individual performances we've seen at Allianz Field ever, is great. And I think we'll talk about it in a second. But ultimately, we have to shift to our mentality to make sure we're more disciplined, that we don't put ourselves in the 8 ball. And frankly, that game could have been 2-3-0 us, I think, if we stayed had 11 men on the field. So as good as the performance was, as good as getting a 1-0 win, good bounce back in Leagues Cup to give us a chance, you certainly have to kind of hold your hand up and say, hey, there's some areas in the field here we have to get more sharp and better with.
Yeah, absolutely. Another kind of note that overlaps both of them. You mentioned Luik playing excellent in Seattle. I thought he was excellent once again against Necaxa on Tuesday night. He was incredibly lively on that right wing back role in both games, and that was really fun to see him just get forward and also play really well really well defensively. That was nice to see. Josef Rosales playing excellently higher up the field in both games, but you kind of mentioned it, you hinted at it there, and we've gone 20 minutes in the podcast without diving into it. Dane St. Clair having the game of his life against Necaxa. Was 16 saves coming off an 8-save performance against Seattle. So 24 saves total in 2 matches. That is an incredible run of games for Dane St. Clair. But I know you said it's probably the standout performance at Allianz Field, but where does Dane's performance the other night rank for you all time among goalkeeper performances that you've seen?
Well, you got to go back to Tim Howard against Belgium, had 16 saves. That was an amazing one. And again, the fact that we're even bringing this up between those two and debating what was better or worse is awesome. I mean, it just shows Dane was dialed in. I mean, he was hungry. One of my favorite things, right? All the saves. And I think there was a couple that were just world class in terms of keeping it out. But he also kind of, got the team going in terms of just managing being down a man and the tempo, which is sometimes slowing it down, making sure that we're dealing with stuff. He was outstanding. I think they had 22 corner kicks. That is so much kind of stress that he has to deal with inside that huge box. They had a couple big guys that were winning headers and they're kind of going for initial header in front of him for a second ball to try to score. So it wasn't even just the saves, it was the entire game and how dialed in and the maturity level he scored about managing that second half down a man. And, I think he was captain that night too, which I thought was pretty cool. So there was kind of a lot of elements here, not just his individual side, but his leadership on the field that night for a group that, had to deal with some huge adversity was really impressive. So I mean, it's up there. I always separate goalkeeper performance from field performances because they are so different. So again, for me, it was up there as the best ever at Allianz Field, probably. Individually, there's moments. Vito's save against Dallas is always one of my favorite moments ever at Allianz Field. But like a 90-minute performance like that, it's hard to find one better than that.
I still don't think there's been a louder sound than when Vito made that save at Allianz Field. That was an incredible roar from the Allianz Field fan base when that happened, because it was late in the match, needed to save the win. It was, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, just an incredible moment that I don't think there's been a louder moment at Allianz Field since.
Yeah, it's really unbelievable how these, it's not always just maybe a great goal that gives you the moment. And I love how soccer is, where it's so unpredictable. This was another one that we get down a man. We scored early. We know now we're going to have to defend for loads of the game.
Yeah.
And you're almost like, well, what does this mean? What's going to happen? And you can't tell stories. The game tells the story. And ultimately, as the second half progressed, the energy of Dane's saves and the crowd realizing, oh, there might be something special going on here.
Right.
And the build up of just really every save and the bigger save just built up even more, that like the crowd knew that they were in for like something really special. They were at the stadium to watch something special when you thought there was going to be an innocuous night, where, you thought we'd just kind of have to grit out the win, hopefully, and have a gutsy performance. We talk about that. And instead you have these individual moments that connect the crowd to just what a special, special night. I talked to people that went to the game, and it was one of their favorite games they've been at because of just that. And we probably had the ball 20% of the time. So I love the unexpected moments where, and again, I've always said it, sometimes you have games that aren't fun and aren't, special. But that enhances moments like this, where just as the game built in that second half, every little tackle, every little cross we dealt with, every big save Dane dealt with, the crowd just got bigger and bigger. And it really was nice to see our team walk off the 1-0 win based on Dane deserved it. I mean, he really carried the team on his shoulders, but there was a gutsy performance by everybody else to fight with everything he had to get the result.
Just because the Loons are away doesn't mean you have to watch the match from home. With Loons Watch Spots presented by Coors Light, you can find a piece of that Allianz Field atmosphere at some of your favorite Twin Cities locations. Check out the full list of locations and upcoming watch parties at MNUFC.com/Loons Watch Spots. Yeah, and I want to go back to a comment you made that I don't think I've seen enough of, and that the Loons faced 20 corner kicks against Necaxa that night, and that has been an area that has been well documented, that the Loons have struggled this season in defending set pieces, and they faced 20 corner kicks and didn't allow a goal. There was a few point-blank saves where Dane had to make, just as you said, world-class saves to stop the goal from going in, where a player was running free on the back post and was just allowed too much space, but Dane was there to stop it, and felt like he just decided single-handedly that he wasn't going to allow anything, and it didn't matter if there was going to be a mistake, an open play or whatnot. It was an incredible performance that will go down in history from Dane St. Clair. But I think facing all those set pieces and not allowing the goals, I don't think I've seen enough conversation about that, because as we talked about coming into this Leagues Cup break, that was an area that the Loons had struggled in recently and clearly had been training on the training ground trying to fix.
Yeah, it really did. And I think we'll go back to Dane. I think you also mentioned, that first half, had a lot of challenges to it. First and foremost, you mentioned Luik. The tempo of that goal that we
Yeah.
drew the PK to score the goal was outstanding. The breakout, from Tani and Bongi and Luik, and then back to Luik, and just his quick movement. Obviously the VAR call was right. I think, again, this is all subjective. I honestly couldn't believe the Mexican players, 5 minutes into a game, were behaving at the referee the way they were. I knew it was going to be a tough night for the ref when he couldn't even control Mexican players. That probably was a PK. No, it was a PK, but fine, you want to debate it, but how can players surround a ref for 5 straight minutes after
Yeah.
VAR? You knew that he lost control of the game right there, and you knew it was going to be kind of a spicy game, and that it was going to be tough to battle through. But again, I love the tempo of the start. I love where Luik was. I loved Joseph's energy in that first half, so that it couldn't be just Necaxa all the time. We had some quality touches by Robin, by Joseph, some great movement by Tani. Eric had to really battle what he was going to do. And again, at the end of the day, it was interesting that he took off the fresh legs of Bongi early to kind of change tactically what we're going to do with 10 men. It raised my eyebrows even a little bit, but we got through it, and we got to halftime up still and having the lead. So then we only had to deal with 45 minutes. So it was a fascinating first half. It was a lot of drama. Again, I would have liked us to not have another red card at Leagues Cup game, but it was also fun to see us handle adversity. Unlike the Seattle game, we really, really did. And it took a special night from a special performance from a goalie, along with the rest of the group having some special moments within the second half where they had to defend and really frustrate Necaxa for a large portion of that game.
Yeah, absolutely. Josef Rosales was outstanding and absolutely electric up in the attack in that game. And I just felt like there was, I don't want to say renewed confidence, because he's been confident all season. We've talked about him ad nauseum on this podcast and how well he's developed into one of the more important players on this roster. And he was just electric in the attack. He was creative. He was showing off skills that I don't think we've seen from him on the field, on the game field, at least, in his time here. And he was everywhere when the Loons did have the ball in the attack, and he was creating dangerous chances. And there was a lot of confidence from him in the attack on that night.
Yeah, it really was. Obviously a couple special cutbacks.
Yeah.
The right footed shot was really nice. His in the corner of the box where he kind of cut back and then faked the shot, and got it off, and then blocked it. Again, it just gave us energy, gave the crowd energy, remind us that we're not going to just defend for the whole time. His confidence and belief and what he's doing is just outstanding right now. And again, like I said, he and Robin had some nice connected passes in the second half to relieve pressure. And I thought that, the back three grew in the game as well. I thought it was an outstanding game by Tapias. I thought he read every play, and it was a little bit, he's like, yeah, I know these guys. I know what they're going to do. I know how to stop them. And he just did. He really cleaned a lot up. It was nice to see Dugan, just kind of seem calm and composed the whole game.
Yeah.
He had some big moments in the air. He had some big moments of moving the ball. It was a tough outing for Hugo. Certainly he's still young and coming back from a big injury, and just it was an unfortunate play, but also we've got to get better and not get split like that early in the game to lead to a potential red card, which happened. So, again, I thought it was a fascinating night on so many levels, tactically for our coaching staff, and then for our group to come together, and then a fan experience, one of the best in a different way than we've ever had at Allianz Field.
Yeah, absolutely. Another guy who deserves some credit. Devin Padelford had another excellent game on the opposite wingback from Luik, and he was just, you could tell when he came off in the later parts of that match, he had just put everything he had into that match. And we've seen that from him throughout his time this season, that he's just going to go 110% until the game's over or he's substituted out. And he did that again the other night. He was incredible.
Yeah. I think he was cramping by the end of the game. And, again, I thought just getting those fresh legs in really kind of helped us get through those final few minutes where it was an onslaught. There's no doubt about it. We were using everything we could, the crowd, fresh legs, just even that one attack late in the game where Pookie had the two chances was so important because they were throwing so many numbers forward. And it was a nice reminder that we need to go forward and keep the ball a little bit. so we can let them know they can't throw numbers like 100% forward, or else we'll hurt them. And so a couple breakouts by Joseph and Robin really helped to do that. And again, Pookie's fresh legs helped. It was nice for him to have that finish, but ultimately we walked off the field with the win, and we're still in it, which is so important.
Absolutely. And we'll talk about that coming up. I do want to mention and ask you about what Necaxa did on the night, because obviously they were up a man for a significant portion of the match, but they also did have 34 shots, 16 on goal. They created a ton of chances that Dane St. Clair had to save. They were excellent in the attack. Obviously, having the extra man is going to help, but what did they do specifically that really challenged the Loons outside of obviously having the man advantage?
Yeah, I mean, I think their recovery of the ball and counter pressing was really good. You know, they really understood that we were down a man and that we were a little bit tired and we were going to be tired, particularly in that second half. You know, there was a long period there where we would thwart them, and then we couldn't move the ball. And so, you know, 2 to 3 seconds later, they had the ball again. And I thought they did a really good job of counter pressing us at key moments, particularly in that second half, that just created waves of attacks. You know, I think they really did a great job of using that man advantage to really push the tempo for them to get the ball back. On the flip side, I thought they looked a little fatigued with some of their decisions. I thought some of their long range shots were a little bit too ambitious and allowed us to maybe get out of defending being tired, you know, because every time a shot would go out of bounds or go away, remember, that's some good time for us to rest and recover and get our shape and structure again. So I thought they had some odd switches, long balls late in the game where, you know, Joseph did a great job both winning it, but also getting fouled. So again, I thought there was a little fatigue moments where, as good as they were, their decision-making at times actually let them down for continuing their waves of attacks they had. So it was a mixed bag for me with them. I was so impressed with their ability to get the ball back from us. I thought their final product was lacking from how they were going to finish the playoff in a way that would hurt us for the next play.
Yeah, certainly. Near the end of the match, it felt like some of those long range shots were desperation attempts, just trying to find a way through, find a way past Dane St. Clair and the
Wasn't
wall
going
that
to
he,
happen.
yeah, not with how he was playing that night. So that leaves the Loons kind of in a precarious situation. They still have a chance to move on if a couple things go their way in that game between Seattle and Necaxa coming up on Sunday night, 9:30 p.m. on Apple TV. Looking forward to that one. MLS Season Pass, looking forward to that one. What do we expect from that game between those two teams coming up on Sunday night?
Yeah, I mean, it's a hard one to kind of predict. I think the easiest kind of talking about it is if Seattle wins the game outright, we go through.
Yep.
The second way to easiest talk about, if Seattle and Necaxa tie, essentially, that it goes to PKs, we go through. After that, it's pretty. We get if Necaxa wins, we're probably out unless they win by 4 goals. So to me, it's really about us, cheering on a team that has had our number in Seattle now and doing what they do to us and just beating Necaxa. Fascinating because Seattle's starting to play a little bit better. So I think they've got a really good shot. On turf, there's probably a home field advantage massively more than the MLS teams because Necaxa, I think, only has Tijuana that plays on turf now. So they don't have to deal with turf as much as MLS teams do. And Seattle's been good lately. So I think, the reality is, I feel like there's a shot, for us to get through this group and see what kind of run we can make, hopefully.
Yeah, you said it there. You kind of wrapped it up there. Minnesota go through or finish second if Seattle beat Necaxa or they tie. Loons are basically eliminated if Necaxa wins. Potential opponents, though. Let's get into this conversation. Who do you want to face for the potential opponents? We'll play someone from Group B if the Loons advance. And that opponent could be either Chivas, San Jose, or LA Galaxy at this point. Who do we want to see coming through in that group?
So you got to help me here. I think if we play the Galaxy, that would be a home game, correct?
I think so, from what I've read, yes.
Yeah. So if that's the case, 100%, I want the Galaxy.
Oh, okay.
Home game. I want to get a home game. I mean, I'm all about our fans experiencing a run in the Leagues Cup, and I think it'd be great to have a game at Allianz Field. After that, obviously playing Chivas would be an awesome experience for our club. I think that would be out in California.
Yep.
Uh, and it'd be fun to see how we could, line up against them, particularly as we get healthy now. We have a nice long break. The guys have had a couple days off now, which we hadn't had for a long time. So I think we'd be fresh and hungry for there if we played the Chivas. And we've matched up really well against San Jose. I think we had a great game, a week and a half ago against San Jose. So I like it. I like if we get through. I always believe that this tournament is cool because the runs you can make are based on your last game and that you have hope in the next game.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's valid arguments, as you said, for each of those three teams to play. Obviously, with the Galaxy, you said home game, you want those as much as you can, even if the Galaxy are in a good bit of form. San Jose, I think that one's my favorite just because of the way San Jose have played recently and the fact that we beat them at Allianz Field a couple weeks ago at this point. And Chivas playing against one of the more historic teams in this region. I know they're not at the same level they historically have been, but they're still one of the more revered teams in this region, and they've got a huge fan base and following in this country. And it would be awesome to see that kind of atmosphere out in California and watch that game. I think for me, the pecking order goes San Jose, LA, and then Chivas for the teams that I would want to
Is
face.
San Jose home? Would that be home as well, or would that be away?
I think that would be away, if
Okay.
I'm remembering correctly. I'm not quite sure, but I'm fairly positive. I saw that someone said it would be away. So it would be, yeah, it's because the LA Galaxy game would be at home. I think that one's up there. But for me, it's San Jose based on recent performances and recent form and the fact that played them a couple weeks ago and kind of know what they're all about lately. Games to watch, as we said, Seattle, Necaxa coming up Sunday, August 4th at 9:30 p.m. Chivas and the Galaxy as well at the same time, same day. So obviously Loons fans will be tuning to that one to see who they will play coming up in the next round. If the Loons do advance, round of 32 match won't take place until August 8th. So as you said, for the first time, it feels like in 3 months, there is a significant break for the Loons to have here. It'll be a week, almost 2 weeks at that point, between games. And that is certainly the longest streak they've had in a couple months at this point.
Yeah, I think, like I said, it's tough to not control your own fate, so that makes you nervous. But I do think a couple days here break, and then finding out your opponent, and then just really now preparing for that opponent makes it exciting. So again, we need Seattle to take care of business, and then we need to prepare for hopefully a great run over the next couple of weeks, which is to me the exciting thing about the Leagues Cup. These knockout games just up at a level, and obviously we had a great run last year, and it's exciting to hopefully get out of our group and get excited if we can make a run.
Absolutely. Before we get to our predictions at the end of the show, I do also want to get your thoughts on the new signings that have been announced. Jefferson Diaz in defense and Kelvin Yeboah in attack. What do each of these guys bring, and what should we expect to see from them when they finally take the field for Minnesota?
I'm incredibly excited. Obviously, we've had some subtractions to the roster in this transfer window. We knew they were coming, and it's much needed to add some depth, add some quality to the roster. Kelvin, Italian, Ghanaian, still young, where he's finding his footing as a great pro, but he's shown signs that he's only going to get better. He can play in the middle, he can play wide. He's quick. He can get up and down the line. He's somebody that has a great belief and great personality, that wants to be part of a team and wants to be part of a winning culture. So it's really exciting. I mean, again, he is somebody that I think you just add to the depth and quality and growth of where we're going to go, not even just this year, but for future years. And then certainly in the back, losing Kervin Arriaga had an impact. There's no doubt. We've had great young guys up and coming. We've got a lot of potential, but we also, kind of need to find some depth and find some future center backs for the future of this club. And this is a player who, is at that age where the profile, he's still coming into what he's going to be, but athletically off the charts, plays for a really good club in Colombia. Cali's a great club. They've been known to produce great center backs, great number 10s, but also great center backs. So it's exciting. It's exciting that we've got two guys coming in. Certainly for our fans right now, they're going through the visa process, so that the date where they'll be available is TBD. That's out of our hands. That comes to the government work and making sure that they can get their visas to work in our country. So hopefully we'll get him here as quickly as possible, get him integrated and get him going for this run, whether it's Leagues Cup or the second or not even second, the last, quarter of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what's exciting for me is that these guys are young. They're fresh faces into the club, and that these deals got done really quickly, it feels like. So you can get started on that visa process, which we know can hamper some of these start dates for these guys. And I think that was exciting to see those deals come together so quickly and kind of get some new bodies and new faces and new legs into the club that I think it's safe to say desperately needed some fresh legs at this point in the season when there's been a lot of games in a short amount of time. So now let's look ahead to some of these games coming up across Leagues Cup, make our predictions. Let's go Real Salt Lake hosting Atlas. That one coming up tonight as of recording on Thursday. What do we expect from this one? I don't believe Real Salt Lake have played yet. So
Okay, and what did Atlas do in their game?
they are 1-0, so it looks like they won. I don't remember who they beat.
All right, I've got RSL and a shootout win.
Shootout win.
Yes.
I think I'm going RSL with a regulation win on this one. I've liked what they've done and how they've played and how they have continued to develop this attacking profile that I don't think many people expected coming into the season. Yes, they had Chicho Arango. We knew that he would score goals, but I don't think we expected the rest of the attack to come around for Real Salt Lake this season. The big one on Saturday, Tigres hosting Miami on Saturday at 7 p.m. Your thoughts on this one?
Great game, great matchup. I'm going to go Tigres 2-0.
Ooh, is Messi playing? I don't know if he is.
I mean, again, I have no information except for my eyes saw a inverted ankle injury that usually takes 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Although he is superhuman, so he on the field, but I can't see him being ready by this weekend.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go Tigres on this one. I'm going to go a little bit of a surprise from you. I'm going to go penalty kick win for Tigres on this one. I think that'll be a tightly fought affair between those two sides. Let's go Atlanta for the final one, hosting Santos Laguna on Sunday.
2-1 Santos.
2-1 Santos. Yeah, I think Santos in regular time for that one as well. Who do we expect who has impressed you out of these teams so far over the first couple games of Leagues Cup? I know some teams haven't played yet, just the nature of this tournament, but before we sign off for the day, for the week, your final thoughts on who's impressed you the most so far in Leagues Cup?
Well, I think I've got to give the credit to Austin. I mean, those are two of the top tier teams and Liga MX, and you've got Pumas and Monterrey winning those two games. You're through to in your group. You won the group. That's really impressive. I mean, and again, it's not like they're taking over the league and crushing it like maybe RSL. So for me, that's really probably the top one where I've been really impressed. With their results so far.
Yeah, that came out of nowhere. Those two wins against two really difficult clubs to get those wins against, because it's not like RSL or Austin have played well this season. They're 8-7-10 on the, or 8-10-7 on the season. They haven't had a good season, and just getting those wins certainly will give them a boost going into the second half of the season. That has been one of the more impressive teams of the tournament. That's it. That's it for the week. We'll be back next week to discuss and hopefully preview the game coming up against whoever the Loons play. Coming up next, I believe Thursday would be the next game. Yeah, August 8th, next Thursday. Yeah. So hopefully we'll be able to come back and preview that game. Manny, good stuff from me today. We'll talk to you next week.
Thank you. And John, enjoy the weekend off, buddy.
I will.
It's tough when we don't play, but it's enjoy, a weekend of just watching soccer.
As a wrestling fan, we've got SummerSlam this weekend, so I've got a full sports calendar this weekend. So
plus you got Olympics, so go men and women.
Olympics, SummerSlam, more Leagues Cup action. Sports fan is going to be exceptionally happy this weekend. Loons fans, we'll talk to you next week. Thanks to the producing staff of Grace Dearson, Evan Antler, and Kyle Hayward for putting this on every week. And Loons fans, we'll talk to you next week.